Was that Jesse?
Oh, wow.
I commend her
All right, we're not gonna run when you all are ready.
All right, let's do this thing. Good evening. I'd like to call this Radford City Schools School Board meeting for January 10th, 2023. Can we have a moment of silence, please? All right, can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Calfee, would you like to lead us?
Yes, ma'am.
allegiance
To the flag
of
the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, one of our brand new board members is home with a sinus infection, and so we need to approve the electronic participation in a meeting from a remote location by a board member. Do I have a motion? Do we have to say the?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, can you read the italicized bit that's there on
I
the?
move that the board approve Board Member Jane Swing's participation in this meeting from a remote location, specifically from her home in Virginia, Radford, Virginia, due to illness as provided for pursuant to Board Policy BDD and Virginia Code Section 2237081.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so we have
You're official, Miss Swing.
Jane Swing is at home on the Zoom, but hopefully she will be all better for our meeting in February. Now we need to review and approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move the RCPS grading system to action items tonight.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So we'll move that.
Do we need to be able to hear Jane vote? Haven't.
She's unmuted, so she hadn't said anything yet.
Okay. I just want to make sure she has a voice.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
You voted.
What was
She.
it called?
Yeah, she. Did you vote yes on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Us. Okay.
Do you need us to raise hands? Is that easier so you can see? Okay.
I can type into the chat.
No, we can hear you.
Now, if you speak
Okay.
out loud, we can hear you.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
I lost the camera again, and it was Rob and Ellen. I can't stop it because we're in session.
Okay. Do you need them to move to the other side?
I can't get that shut footage either. It's just out of position. I
Okay.
get the front of Rob's.
They can hear us.
They can hear us.
They can hear us, right?
Okay.
It's just fine.
Okay.
All right. So, Ms. Swing, if you can make sure to just speak out when you're voting, and the rest of us will speak out and raise our hands so that they can see who is voting, please. Does that work for everybody? All right. So we are going to, and I guess, do we need to approve the rest of the agenda?
Yes.
We made it. So, all right. Now, with that amendment, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All right. We are going to go ahead with our report of the student this evening.
We'd like to introduce our family from McCarg here with Miss Patterson and Miss Green and Miss Reedy. Looks like we got some fun stuff.
We need to move that podium so we can. Or I guess we can leave it there because there's the microphone.
All right, these are, does this work?
Yeah,
I think you
is
turned
it
it on.
green?
Yes. Okay, these are second graders from McCarg Elementary, and we just finished a PLTW module on matter, and they're going to share some things with you. Project Lead the Way is a learning-based system that allows kids to solve a problem at the end of their learning. It follows something called an APB. Approach, A stands for activity, so there's 3 activities that helps them build prior knowledge. Then there's a project that's usually a science-based experiment where they can do the scientific method. And then the B stands for problem-based. And they're going to share with you what they've learned.
For the first activity, we read a story about some kids who needed to keep their popsicles frozen while they played soccer. This was the problem that we were going to solve.
To get ready to save the popsicles, we had to research and learn a lot about matter and about insulators and conductors.
For the project, we did a science experiment. We tested different materials to see how much heat could get through them. We used what we learned to pick out the materials we would use to create a model to keep the ice pops from melting.
We used thermometers to test and a thermometer to measure the amount of heat that got through. We graphed our results and figured out which were the best insulators.
That's a big word.
After that, we were ready to solve the problem. We worked with a partner to make a plan for keeping the ice pops from melting. We took our plan to the tinker tank. We put our models under heat lamps to pretend they were in the sun.
After 30 minutes, we measured how much of the ice pop had melted by pouring it into a graduated cylinder. We learned how to read one while they were under the heat lamp.
We used a chart that helped us decide if our model was good insulator or if it needed improvement.
So now they're going to tell you about the models. They brought some samples of the models that they built, and they're going to tell you about those. You want to go first? Matthias, you want to go first? Okay.
My name was Matthias, and my favorite project was we created a special filling like a bedding, so it keeps the popsicles cold.
All right. Good job. Okay. How about yours? Here, let me hold this stuff and you can show them how it works. Who helped her with this one? You want to come help Andy? You can come around here to hold this. Now you show how the popsicle goes in it.
Okay.
Good job. All right. How about yours? You got anything to say about it?
How we built it was we used 2 foam cups and 1 foam bowl with some duct tape and 1 foam paper plate. And this is how we would put the popsicle in. We would hold this and our partner would put it on and it would stick.
Wow.
Nice. Okay.
Okay.
My name is Jocelyn, and I made, so I have my popsicle, and then
You want to put it on the end of the table?
and then I put the ice pop, and then I close it.
Okay.
All
Nice.
right.
Anybody have any questions for these engineers?
What was the favorite part? What was your favorite part of the whole project?
Our favorite part was building with my partner and making the design.
Anybody else have a favorite?
Working with my buddy. Working with my partner.
Who liked using a glue gun?
Ooh, glue guns are fun. I love all the creativity, how everything's so different but still
And
achieves similar
We had a
goals.
slideshow, I don't know if we can show that shows some pictures of some of the other kids' designs.
Is it, okay.
So while some of them got very fancy, that was, it should go by itself. So while that's coming up, the first couple of activities are to build prior knowledge. That's where we integrate a lot of the learning into their curriculum. And the way we did it in this particular module is the classroom teachers carried the biggest load of that. And then, so they were able to build all this prior knowledge and read lots of books and study the insulators and conductors and things like that. It should just autoplay. It doesn't matter.
There we go.
It's not really in any order. It's just different snapshots. So then they came to the Tinker Tank, like they said, to do the project. There's the heat lamps that we put them under. There's some pictures of the designs that different kids drew. That was a popular design once one kid did it.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have questions? Probably. Or you want to say anything?
We're obviously very proud of all of the work that they're doing, not only in Tinker Tank, but in all of your classes. You guys are working hard, and we thank you for being here this evening and being so brave to present for everyone.
You did an amazing
Great job.
Wonderful.
Did you get to
Thank
eat
you
any
all.
popsicles? Did you get to eat any of them? Oh,
Yes,
good.
they did.
Okay. That's the most important part of science is
They stand behind
Do you want to get a
celebration
picture with them with
when it
you?
works. I sent one to you too. I'll send one to you.
I'm missing someone. At the-
He wasn't doing well.
Okay, okay,
Oh.
great. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being
you.
here.
There we go.
Thank you.
Great, God.
Okay,
Do you want-
we're going to put our stuff back in the
Good job, you guys. Good job.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do we have some recognitions this evening? Mr. Green?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just wanted to congratulate our new board members and welcome you all to the school board. And we provided you with a little Rocking R Bobcat gift.
Oh, nice.
I hope it fits. If it doesn't, let
I
me
do
let me
too.
know. And let me know, and we can get you another
Okay.
size if you need to. And
Okay.
Miss Swing years is here too, so let's give him applause.
Is that a Schmedium?
No, more like a Marge.
Schmedium.
And that's all the recognitions
That's
I
it?
have
Okay,
this evening.
great.
Thank you.
Well, we all welcome you all to the board. This is, exciting times, and it's a different schedule than we've been on. So we're figuring it out as we're going along, right? When Dr. Ray and I came on, it was during the summertime, and now it's in the winter, and we're just gonna kind of keep on keeping on. Hopefully we can be here to help you all settle in. If you have any questions, that's why we're here. So thank you all very much for volunteering your time. I mean, I know that we get a paycheck, but it's really volunteering your time. And so we appreciate you, and we appreciate you, Ms. Swing, at home on Zoom, not feeling well. So thank you all for serving your community. We appreciate you.
Welcome.
All right, consent items. Minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes from last month? Okay. Superintendent's authority to appoint between meetings. I know that folks have had questions about that in the past. Do you want to explain what that's about for our
That's, for
members?
example, if we lose a position and we have to have somebody in there immediately before we can wait to the next meeting, I have the authority to approve that as long as they go through the correct background and CPS stuff and items of that nature, so that we can get them back in the classroom or as a custodian or
Nutrition.
school nutrition worker or something like that.
So, and then it would come to us for approval in the next meeting for official approval.
Or sometimes there's last minute field trips too that come in and they have to take the field trip before the meeting, so, but you all get those too at the next meeting as well, something like that.
Okay, great. Everyone take a look at the bills and petty cash reports for December. Any questions on that? All right, student activities. Did we have one?
We have
Or was it more than that?
3.
3. Okay. Any questions on the student activities? Okay. The use of school facilities? Do we have any of those?
Just one of those.
Okay. Any other consent items?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
I make a motion that we approve consent items.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Swing, do you?
Aye.
Good to go? All right, motion passes. All right, information items. Do we have any public comment? I don't think I saw anybody. No?
No.
And we did have, and any come in over email?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we will skip that for this evening. As always, anybody who, is listening at home, if there's something that you would like to, have read at the board meeting, you can email those in to Mr. Graham or Ms. Long, and those will be read during the meeting if you're not able to attend, or you can come and have your time to make a comment. All right, the report of the superintendent.
If it's okay with you all, I'd like to kind of go down and start with the grading scale, because we do have Dr. Matt Hurt with us tonight, who's taken his time away from his family to be with us and help provide us some information. He is the executive director of the Comprehensive Instructional Program, which, Matt, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it serves about 43 school divisions right now, or somewhere around that.
48 is it today?
48 school divisions, and it provides us a great deal of instructional leadership and support, and we do appreciate him taking his time to be with us tonight. You all had asked me to provide you with a report on how the grading scale is going, and if you want to take one of these and pass those down, I got one for you too. So, and I
Mr. Graham,
apologize.
can we put Dr. Hurt on the
On the
big
big
screen so
screen?
we can see him?
Is there a way to do that, Jody? Stacy?
I don't have the Zoom installed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
we had talked about that too, and I'm afraid it would impact our
Speaker and everything?
our video, our
Okay.
live video. Can
Okay.
you hear him?
Just a question.
Yep.
Just a thought.
So what you have there is just the first page. Don't worry about the second one. Is this one? We'll hope save that for later. But after we early on in the year, we decided to have 50 to be the lowest.
50.
We started
Yep.
with 50, and that's what we had decided when we were going through the pandemic. And the previous board had voted to do that, and then we had some comments from our staff to move that back to 40. And there's information, Ellen's going to go over the website that we have that we're doing the study on to give you all an idea of that. And actually, can you pull that up, Carrie? Just go to the website. And the study is still going on. The last meeting we had, I believe, was,
It was the summer,
when
we did the 40 to 100.
it was in the fall when we changed the 50 to the 40.
Right.
And then since then, as we've told you all, we have put an enormous amount of information on the grading scale site, including information on different types of grading scales, information on a grading scale from 0 to 100,
Go to
standard-based
community.
grading scale. There's a
RCPS
lot
stories,
at the top there.
and if you scroll
I can't
down,
tell anything about this.
there
I
are
know,
22,
I got it.
23 grading
I'll
systems.
tell you. So you can see on the top there's a lot of items that we've covered, and she's going to just give you a brief overview of that.
So if you slide over this long to 22, 23 grading system, this is what's updated every month. Maybe not Go to the second to the right. Sorry, Carrie, go over. There. Nope, there. Yep. Okay, so every month we've loaded on this site new articles about grading. I've put in search words like grading, scale, system, pros, cons, complexities, challenges, grading challenges, all kinds of things to find new articles that one might, sorry, that one's not going to come up, one might find really helpful. There are 1,000 different opinions, it feels like right now. After reading them, what I was hoping is anybody who actually would go through this would then take the survey that's provided to give us some information about how much someone knows, what they think, and so on. If you, in January, for the month of December, no one filled out the survey. For the month of November, 22 people filled out the survey, and if you'll scroll down, you'll see those results, because I put the results as well. So right there, November grading, if you'll go down, Carrie, right there. Oh. Yep. So there's the results of the November grading scale survey for those folks who filled it out. And then I think one person took it another month. So in total, out of our 1,600 families and 150 teachers, 23 people have taken the survey. So I just keep loading the articles on for us to read. We said we would do that all through the year, and then we would come back and discuss it. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Ellen. And then so we also have, I pulled a little data for you, and I'm sorry that it didn't come out in color, but REA did a survey for us, a brief survey. There's 2 questions. One says, do you think the grading scale should eventually be reviewed and possibly changed? 60.7% said yes, 14.3% said no, 10.7% said maybe, and 14.3% said undecided at this time. And then we also asked, do you think the grading scale should be changed at this time, meaning mid-school year? 28.6% said yes, 64.3% said no, nobody said maybe, and 7.1% are undecided at this time. And then I asked our Director of Information Technology, Ms. Weaver, to pull the number of failures that we had in the first quarter of 2019 when the grading scale was 0 to 100. And we had 129 failures at that point. And then also asked her to pull what we had this year in 2022, the first quarter, when we have the grading scale from 40 to 100, and we have 125 failures. So there's not a big difference between the two. And then we don't have Matt on the grading scale committee, but he offers a lot of advice and guidance to us on many things, and works very well with us in a number of different areas too. He's also part of our Region 7 Virtual Academy. He serves as a liaison to the Virginia Department of Education, and you all asked me to invite him, and he was more than willing to join us. So Matt, I will turn it over to you, and can you all see him?
Good afternoon.
Hi there.
There he is.
How is everybody?
It's fine. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. I guess the first thing I want to know is what kind of questions or concerns do you all have, and maybe I can kind of shed some light into that as far as some of the studies that we've done surrounding grading and performance and that kind of thing.
I think the biggest concern for me is awarding 40 grade points if there is no effort to complete work.
Yeah, that's something I've met with a lot of teachers, specifically this past semester, going over all this data and stuff like that in Radford and other places as well. And that seems to be a sticking point with a lot of teachers. And if you think about it, you know, our teachers, they very carefully prepare all the work that they give to their kids, and it's for a specific purpose, to make sure that they master the skills that are set forth by the Virginia Department of Education that kids are supposed to learn each year. And if you think about a K-12 curriculum, it's not unlike an assembly line. And you know, when Henry Ford created his assembly line many years ago, he didn't tell the workers along the line, you all do what you want to do. He gave every one of them a very specific set of instructions. You know, you're to put this nut on this bolt and torque it down to this level of specification. And when the workers completed those tasks as specified, then the Model T rolled off the line and actually cranked and was able to be sold. You know, if teachers didn't do what they were supposed to do, then that didn't work out so well. It's very much like that. If you think about each grade level as a stop along that assembly line, you know, if we do what we're supposed to at each grade level, then we're going to produce our students who are ready to go on to post-secondary things. At the end, they're going to have all the skills that they need. Now, the problem I think that I have and a lot of teachers have about giving kids a pass, meaning giving them a 40 instead of making them do their work, is just this. That communicates that that work is not that important. If we're saying that you don't need to do it and we're going to let you buy with a 40, you know, we have some kids that will take that option. And if they take that option, then what's the end result likely to be? And if you think about it, I've never done the math on this, so I don't know exactly how this would work out. But if we were to allow kids to earn a grade for doing absolutely nothing, there is a significant portion of the curriculum that they would not engage with and could still then pass the class. And then, of course, on the SOL test, you know, that we're held accountable to for the state, you know, the state doesn't know what we let them by with, so they don't give us a pass on those questions that they missed. So, you know, that is a problem. Now, the other side of it is this. If we have kids that either choose not to do the work or they have some kind of a problem that they can't do the work on their own, maybe that their home life is so chaotic that they don't have a quiet place to do that homework and things, you know, that kind of thing, or they're struggling to learn the content and then they come into school the next day and they haven't done their homework. You know, I also don't think that it's right to give them a 0 at that point. And maybe a better way to approach this thing is to say that it is a non-negotiable that all students will do the work. If a kid just simply chooses not to do the work, then that might be a discipline issue. You know, that they might need to come in during their lunch period or before school or after school until they get that work done. If it is a kid that's struggling, either they are struggling with the content or they may not have a quiet place to work at home, then we can make some sort of arrangements to provide them the support that they need to get that done. So again, you know, if we get rid of that, you know, 40 as the floor, we also need to come back and figure out how we're going to deal with those kids that don't do their work even after that point.
That's valid no matter what the scale is, though. The argument's valid. It is no argument, it's a fact, what you're saying, regardless of the scale, in my mind.
Yes, sir. And then to the scale, I did want to mention this, and we've not really done any particular studies on this because, as it turns out, more and more and more of our divisions are moving over to the 10-point scale. We don't see the opposite trend. But I'm not so sure that the scale itself is that big of a deal, because when you think about it in terms of the SOL test, for example, you know, all of their SOL cut scores, the percentage of questions that a kid has to get correct in order to earn a passing score, all of the cut scores are below 60. So, you know, at this point now, the governor, you know, he did make a big bold statement before Christmas and said that he was going to order the Board of Education to raise Virginia's cut scores in 3 through 8 reading math to be the greatest in the land. Of course, at the last Board of Education meeting, they didn't seem to have anything to do with that. So, you know, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but that's what the cut scores are today.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Dr. Hurt, I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, but on behalf of myself, thank you for your time. I think you've actually been a tremendous amount of help to me and really supported an opinion that I already had. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Ms. Swing, do you have any questions for Dr. Hurt?
No, this this has been very helpful. I don't know of any teacher that would not work with every student they have to help them get their work done and to help them learn the concepts that are being taught. So the grade thing I struggle with.
Well, and one of the things that I've kind of learned about this is that human beings typically do the least that is required to get by. And last I heard, most of our kids were human beings, so they're going to follow suit along that. You know, very few people do above and beyond what's expected. So, you know, when we lower expectations, that lets everybody just kind of lay back and take it easy for a while. And when we raise expectations, a lot of the kids and adults as well will rise to meet those on their own without too much intervention.
So we're not asking to change the 10-point grade scale. No one thinks that we should do that. You know, that should remain in place for sure. But, and I don't oppose extensions on deadlines, and I don't oppose asking to take a test again. You know, that indicates there's a desire, but the credit for zero effort is a sticking point for me. It's kind of non-negotiable, really, and I'm a retired teacher, and so I know, you know, that sometimes as a teacher you have to make accommodations for students. You have to modify things to try to help them learn the and feel more confident. So I know it's not easy. It's not easy, but as a teacher, that's kind of what we're called to do.
Matt, do you have any concerns about changing the grading scale in the middle of the year?
Well, anytime you change horses in midstream, there's likely to be some negative unintended consequences that come along with that. So I'm usually hesitant to recommend doing that. I found usually it's better to do things fresh in a new year. But again, that calls above my pay grade. So,
anybody have anything else for Dr. Hurt?
Well, I think I'm in a similar place where I struggle with the you know, with doing this in the middle of the school year. We know that our students are adaptable. We know that our staff would be able to communicate a change, but we know that there would be, you know, hiccups along the way. And I trust in our staff that they would be able to, you know, see those things happening and address them. I also know that the reason why this was put in place was, you know, as a reaction to our COVID times when there was a struggle to be able to get, you know, information to the students and for the students to be able to show their understanding. That was you know, it's been a difficult time, and we're trying to get back to, you know, normalcy, whatever that means, and we do get to define what that means. And I know that Ms. Denny, you know, and staff have put a lot of work into, you know, researching the reasons why, you know, they wanted to change this scale. You know, and what I'm seeing here with the 2019 and 2022 is that we're not seeing that much of a difference in failures. So I don't know what that tells me. Is that telling me that this is working? Or is that telling me that there's no difference between this way of grading and the way we graded before?
I think anytime that there's a change, well, Matt probably knows better. I think he's done some research on this, but, you know, in talking with him and others, I think there's a mean that you kind of regress to sometimes if there's changes too. Mm-hmm. So maybe that could have but you know, I wanted to share that with you because there wasn't a significant difference in the 4 from 2019 to 2022. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a problem with changing the grading scale if that's what you all want to do. I would hope you wouldn't do it in the middle of the year. I just think like Matt said, there's some unintended consequences that would really have an impact on our children. Two of them that really come to mind for me are graduation rate or graduation too. I really worry about our children who are borderline right now, and we have quite a few. And then, you know, those students who are really on elementary through high school, middle school that are struggling too. I don't know what type of message that sends to them. I know we want higher expectations. I understand that completely. And one of the things that Matt has said, he has a paper out that we have a study group of 22 superintendents that are working together to try to put a message together to the Virginia Department of Education about expectations and things of that nature. And in that he goes into to say that the expectations, the expectations that make the biggest positive difference for students are making sure that we're teaching them on grade level, and then also making sure that they're getting their work done. So, did I say that correct, Matt?
Yes, sir.
So, he and I have talked about the unintended consequences that may have happened from, moving the grading scale during the middle of the year, and that's not something that I would recommend. But you all at the school board, and we'll do what you would like us to do. Anybody else with Matt need anything?
Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you being
Thank
here,
you.
Matt.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank y'all for having me. I'll do the same.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll come back to that as it's
Sure.
now in.
And just a couple of points of information. Ms. Long gave you the statement of economic interest. That has to be, when's that due, Carrie? It's
February 1st.
February 1st. It's a large document, so don't wait till the last day like I'll have before. The 2023-2024 budget, I've sent our budget planning document to our central office directors and to our principals for them to add what they feel like they need for the next year. Just so you new board members are aware, last December we had the budget hearing meeting, and we had the REA come ask us to consider a salary increase and to really not increase our benefits, and they would like to see class sizes decreased. In Richmond today, one of the presentations was about the budget, and the budget looks strong. There was talk about a potential another bonus for our staff in the spring that would be supported by the Virginia Department of Education. I don't know if that'll come to fruition, but it was exciting to hear that. So I think there's some good news coming out of Richmond with that. I do think there's some concern too about inflation and how that's going to impact because they're not real sure what that's going to do to the state budget and what we will see here as a locality too. And then I'd like to introduce Mr. Murphy because we are doing a lot of facility projects, and Thompson Litton is the architect who we use. They're also the architect who, there it is, who designed McCarg and worked with us with McCarg, which turned out to be a fantastic building. And so, Jack, we appreciate you being with us again today.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Appreciate the opportunity to get to present and meet the rest of the new board here. Sorry, I was under the weather, but Mr. Graham's asked me to give you an update on the various projects that we're working on, and I thought it was probably prudent to review some of what I presented in the last time I was here, which was in November. Not that one. Nope, you got the right one on. We'll go to that one after about the third slide or so. You did have it open. There you go. Anyway, I thought it'd be great to review some of the other information too, in case some of you aren't aware of all that's going on with those and how we got to where we are today. So if we just advance that one, please. There we go. These are the projects that I'll talk about, so certainly everybody knows what's been going on in the card. We've been working on that for 5 years almost. Probably 10 years in reality, but I'll give you an update on where things stand with that because we're very close to wrapping it up completely. Where things stand on the community health center there that we're trying to get installed in the card. 2 projects in the gymnasium at the high school. Again, it's been talked about for many years. The science rooms also talked about for many years. And then where we stand on the stadium bleachers. All these projects have been, as I said, discussed for many years and been part of the comprehensive needs assessment and so forth, and we're trying to move forward with them. So as far as the McCard project goes, I am happy to say, and I really wasn't aware of the time frame of your last meeting, but I believe it actually occurred the day after your last meeting that we came to a final resolution and negotiation with the contractor on the closeout of the project, any remaining change order proposals, determining the substantial completion date, and what was necessary to end that contract with them. They agreed to those terms. I think it was a very fair proposal that the schools offered, and certainly one in their interest, and apparently in the contractor's interest as well. And probably most importantly, it avoided any sort of litigation because, as many of you knew, it was a very difficult project. There was a contentious time building. We did this project right before the throes of COVID and pandemic and lockdown and delays on ordering and availability of labor and materials. So it was really, I hate to use the word battle, but in many ways it was. And everybody really kept their eye on the prize here, including the contractor. Contractor moved up to their end of their contract, and I believe delivered a good job. And I can say the shining moment of the whole project really has just been working with Rob, you and your staff, and certainly all the teachers and the administration, and just their support, particularly at the end as things were getting tight and trying to get into the school, and then just the great support that we've heard from the community as a whole. So I'm still very, very proud of the project, and as I told Mr. Graham, it ranks in probably the top 3 most difficult projects of my 30-year career. So anyway, these are the final project cost numbers. About almost $1 million over the revised budget, which again, I know that's a lot. A lot of additional funds were added to the project, including many by the school system itself. But in the grand scheme of things, given the pandemic and so forth, there's still just under 10% over the original budget. So I'm, all things considered, pretty happy about that. So much so that we actually, and with the encouragement of Mr. Graham, decided to submit the project to the VSBA. Some of you may have seen it if you attended down there in November. They had some very specific criteria of how you had to present the project, and from let me just read a few of those, and maybe you can switch over to that other file. I'll just run through our submission with you, but we needed to, highlight. We had 11 slides that we could highlight the project. You couldn't use the name of the project, where it was, the architect, anything like that. And they wanted us to talk about the learning ambiance within the overall project, creating space for collaboration within the community as a whole, and encouraging community collaboration, the overall multi-functionality of the space, sustainable design, reuse of a lot of work, sustainable energy features with the mechanical, electrical systems, in general, its civic presence, and then any subtle security items within the project. So some of those are a little more obtuse than others, but I think we captured it well, and then felt pretty strongly about the project. And as Mr. Graham pointed out, the cost for this project per square foot compared to any other projects was far less than any other projects that were presented, but unfortunately it was not recognized for any of that, and did not receive an award. There was only one actual award that was given on meritorious merit. Anyway, we'll just bring you through the 11 slides, just trying to orient them, given the site plan of the project as a whole. Keep paging through the before and after, the types of spaces within the building sections through, again, all requirements of the submission, exterior shots around the building with elevations. Remember that view along the road there, and how that was one of City Council's requests to improve the curb appeal as a whole. Just some of that, again, learning ambiance, that's that view from that last slide, looking out that same window there towards 12th Street. some of the classroom spaces and collaboration spaces throughout the school. I assume everybody's had a chance to get in there and go through the building now. Again, some of those juncture areas where old meets new, and capturing some of that outdoor space as well as creating other collaboration areas. The new gymnasium, the repurposing of the old Kappa Gymatorium. I don't think I'll ever say that word again other than here. And I mean, even that space, I believe, turned out really nice the way that's been repurposed and how that's used now. And certainly we have a nice new full-service kitchen that goes along with all that as well. Again, some of the reuse, these are all existing classroom spaces, and some before and after shots here. And, even the Jimmy Swift Tower, how that got integrated into the project as a whole. Subtle security, I think I would refer more to passive, but subtle was their word. Hopefully the level of security within the building as a whole is something that's certainly something we don't have to think about, but we know it's in place and that it's working. The last slide was just descriptive data that gave the I guess the numbers of the project, the size of it, the size of the site as a whole, and an overview. One thing I really do want to point out too that those slides don't capture is really extensive site development that took place with this too, to totally rework the vehicle circulation, and again provide additional safety and security. A whole new entrance road tied in to help with some of that, and new parking as a whole too. So all in all, again, I think it was a great project, and I'm proud to be a part of it, and I thank you all for allowing that to happen. This was the very last slide. They let us identify it, and none of the judges look at any of that. So if we could hop back to my other presentation, I'll get back on there unless there's any specific questions about the McCard project. I do have one more there just to remind you. Just hop ahead two, please. This next slide. That many of you have seen this for a long time, but just to remind you, we increased the square footage by over 50% of what was there. So, and I believe made what was there work a lot better from a circulation standpoint. So, and that was a result of working in a collaborative design environment with input from staff and administrators as well as community to affect this design as a whole. So it's certainly a community design. It's not just a T&L effort. And then the one final image, I just received an email the other night from Wilson and Liz regarding the state of the funding on this and the additional work for cameras and so forth. And we're happy to be a part of that. And we're all looking forward to this spring that we're going to see the chimney swifts come back and roost in this new chimney. So again, I'm going to review quickly, and then if you have questions, please interject. But some of this I talked about in November. I just want to make sure you understand the scope of work, and I'll give you a status report of where things stand today. The community health clinic, we were able to cordon off a small area within the CARG. You see the small yellow area there. That's where the school psychologists and ESL program was going to be located. We're providing space for dental and medical exams. Really, the extent of work was not that extensive. But when you see the costs, you'll scratch your head a little, as we did. Primarily, casework and power were the main upgrades for equipment. We retained the same finishes. We didn't change lighting, ceilings. We didn't change the flooring, any of that sort of thing. And it went through the job order contracting method that's approved procurement through the state in hopes of getting this work done over Christmas break. Go to the next slide. Unfortunately, when we got the prices back, they were significantly higher than what anybody expected. There's similar installations at Giles and Pulaski that I know in Giles they did it with their own forces, but probably for an eighth of that cost, a fifth of that cost. So we sat down, reviewed everything, particularly with the the health department and realized that their requirements for the equipment weren't exactly right with regard to the electrical needs. So we made a number of adjustments, particularly to the electrical, tried to reduce some of the casework, sent revised drawings out a week later, got prices back. While it cut it in half, we're still hoping to reduce it a little bit further. So right now we're looking at an alternative procurement, and maybe we can get someone else in here to do that work at a little bit less cost. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Go back to that other slide. There were no design changes or no changes other than the infrastructure that took it down 50%?
Well, the initial requirement was showing 208 volt electric service everywhere for equipment, which virtually the new service had to go all the way back to where it comes into the building, had to work its way back to this area. So that in itself was probably $50,000 worth of the cost.
So it was spec'd incorrectly, I guess. Is that
for the equipment that
right?
We were told was going to be needed. So most of it was going to be movable countertop equipment. So all those outlets had not the standard 110, but 208 volts. And then we also reduced the extent of some of the casework. If you saw that the first drawing, I mean, there was just new cabinetry everywhere.
Okay.
I sent this to the second proposal to the community health center to Michelle, who's been out here to talk to us, and we're meeting tomorrow. They think they can take that down even further. There's still, they think, too much in there that they don't need, particularly with storage. They think they can find storage that they can bring themselves that'll help cut the cost of that too. Originally, it was a $40,000 to $50,000 project, so if we can get it down another 12,000 or maybe 15,000, feel pretty good about moving forward with it.
Any other questions about the community health center? Good. Okay. The next project is the high school gym project. As we've reviewed many times, we're looking at both the locker rooms, and these aren't the team locker rooms. These are the everyday boys and girls locker rooms associated with use of PE class, and then providing actual air conditioning in the gym as a whole. So we're going to replace the existing heating and ventilation with a new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Next slide, please. Real quickly to review the scope of work. On the left-hand side, the upper level is the existing girls' locker room. The lower left level is existing boys, and this is what's proposed for the new girls' or women's locker room. We're opening things up quite a bit, clearing out some of the building concrete benches that are there now, spreading things out, replacing some of the unused shower areas with the new storage and new showers, replacing all the fixtures and faucets and things with up-to-date fixtures, most of which are all original to this building. We're also looking at, go back one second, please. These board units, which are similar to what we've installed in the cart to allow point of use control, will help both with humidity as well as specific heating and cooling. And instead of tying up space here or going on the roof, we're looking at to mount these on the side of the building. And this is the side, you're standing about outside the choir room, looking towards the gym. That's what this elevation is. So they'd be mounted on the side of the building going into a few of those windows. Next slide. Boys' room, very, very similar. The layout's a little bit different. Again, capturing some of this unused space that's currently for storage, upgrading fixtures and faucets, and just opening it up, just making it a much more pleasant space as a whole, and again providing air conditioning and ventilation in these spaces, which none of which was there previously. In the gym itself, next slide. I told everyone in November we were looking at two options, that there was two smaller units that would be underneath the ceiling, that what you currently have there now, versus a single one over the middle of the building. Pricing was pointing towards this direction, with, however, that came with a lot of structural work to support a 5,500-pound unit. As we've continued to work on this design, it's starting to look like the other one is going to be more cost effective. And I also like the fact that it should be able to be undertaken much faster, that we don't have the extent of structural work that would be needed. But maybe it's justifying, but I see it as being a little bit of redundancy. If something were to happen to one, you still have the other one. It may not service the entire building as well as you'd like, but instead of losing everything, you still have one of them. Also, we're going to not be on the roof. We're looking to mount the actual compressor units on the ground outside the building. So we are going in that direction right now, and I think there should not be any appreciable change in costs, but I do think it'll be better in the long run in terms of usability. Next slide. So here's where we are today. We're still looking at the same costs that were presented back mid-pandemic, and at that time those costs had a significant escalation factor in there because of that. So based on talking with Train and some of the other suppliers, they're still feeling pretty good about these numbers. We've gone through the design, as I said, looking at where we're going to live. There are going to be engineers on site again tomorrow. The critical path here is getting those units sized early so the order can be placed. The school can place a purchase order directly to Train here in the next couple weeks, because they have a multi-month lead time, and then we'll continue with the other design work. Come summertime, the two come together, and hopefully we'll be able to get this undertaken during the summer months. Any questions on the gym project? Okay. The science rooms, again, something that's been talked about for a long time. The scope of work has become refined as late as last Thursday, but ultimately we're looking at 5 science rooms, kind of totally revamp new electrical, mechanical systems, all new casework, remove some of the old plumbing, a lot of which isn't even utilized anymore, and just go with a state-of-the-art high school classroom spaces. Go to the next. We also know that there is some existing hazardous materials in there that's been covered, some of the old laptop tables, but also some of the flooring is over top of other encased asbestos, which we're actually sampling that today, and that will all be abated as part of this project. So when I presented in November, the 5 stars is where I thought we were talking about, and then I was a little confused by this one space that turned out to be Mr. Lewis, and then we confirmed it was actually Mr. Grimm's space down the hall. But next slide. But as of Thursday, we discussed this and really felt that this used to be a single room, an art room years ago, and this was a non-load bearing wall. And we just felt access to utilities, the size of that room is more suitable for lab space. So working with Dr. Grant, we're going to reorganize the spaces here and move Mr. Graham down to this combined space. So that will become a new biology lab. And then also, currently this workroom is subdivided into 4 small, totally cluttered areas that it's hard to use any of it. So the desire was to open this up, still provide access from both labs and from the hallway, and also to consider the use of a mobile fume hood instead of one that's built in that doesn't require all the same HVA and ventilation requirements for that. So we're narrowing it down. I'm waiting for the preliminary conceptual layout of all the casework, and hope to have new cost estimates on this shortly thereafter. But we're still looking at that budget of about $100,000 per room for this. Next slide is our schedule where we are. I reviewed most of this again. We're hoping to get this finished by the end of March. We'll still have, further meetings with the high school staff, but want to get this out for pricing and by the end of March through April, and hopefully we're planning on letting 2 contracts on this, mostly because the time frame, working with DES, who's the casework lab supplier equipment, one to that company and then one to the job order contracting. Again, they'd work together to hopefully be able to get all these materials and install them during this upcoming summer. Questions on science rooms? All right, here's a big one. We talked about this extensively at the last meeting, and it's a tricky project. There's a lot of pieces to it. There's many ways to try to approach it. The biggest thing is that it's really served its useful life. The example I used before, this was constructed roughly the same time as the bridge over 81 at the Route 81 over New River there at exit 105. So obviously that bridge had to be replaced. It's exposed to the same elements and made of the same materials. There were significant patches and repairs made back at 94, and what was discovered this fall was a number of those patches were beginning to fail. And I'll show you some of those. But we were also looking at the track project at the same time. We all discussed it in November, that based on the funding and just the sequencing of this work, that we wouldn't want to replace the track before this is done. So we know that there's potential for funding be available next year. While the track is in pretty rough shape, we do think it's usable and you can get there one more year out of it. But we're going to hold off on the track project till after the bleachers are complete. So let me review with you some of the conditions. As you know, we got bleachers on both sides of the stadium, the home side and the visitor side. We're looking at both of them. The home side is the one that really seems to be suffering the greatest deterioration right now. Next. And it's funny because when you enter the stadium, you don't see a lot of these things. If you turn around and you look back, that's where you can really see the extent of a lot of these. And most of it is nosings like this that are really just starting to degrade, and the facing is just coming off of there. We'll walk through these. This was a patch. This is probably the biggest hole that's there right now. It's at its widest point. It may be 4 inches. Our greater concern about this is not so much that hole, it's that it's at the bearing point right here. It's sitting on top of one of the main bearing points of the whole stadium. So keep moving along. You can see some of the patches are already where fabric was added to help adhere concrete patches in the past. That's starting to fail. Moving along. Just a shot across, you can see where it's not isolated in some areas. It's pretty much across the board. This is on the visitor side. Keep going. One too many. Well, back one more. There we go. So what we did, we have no existing drawings. We wanted to confirm what's there. So we worked with a local contractor to cut out a section about 3 feet on each side to expose the main supporting beams that run from top to bottom, to just figure out how big they were more than anything, what their supporting capacity was. And each one of the pieces of the stadium is shaped in an L, precast shaped like an L. So the vertical portion is really the structural portion. Most of our holes are in the horizontal part. That's why we don't feel that there's any real imminent danger here. Obviously, it needs to be replaced or repaired, but structurally, we think it's going to stay in place. And it's not like if something were to fall, it's going to drop, tens of 20 feet. It's in some cases only a few inches above grade, and others a couple feet. So we want to be able to figure out what was there and what's the actual makeup and depth of the precast pieces. You can see some of the old patches here too, right on that bearing point. It's starting to fail. Next slide. And this is what we determined where those bearing points are. They're in footings, the top and bottom. We don't know much else about it. We do still need to do further selective demolition to reveal what it is, but this is what we've been able to determine from our investigation so far. So what we looked at, you can see some of our work out there. What we looked at though was, repairs versus replacement in kind, or the possibility, next slide please, keep going. You can see there, that's a safety concern on those stairs, the wear out that nosing of every one of those stairs. But I presented in November 2 options, one to go with aluminum bleachers, one to go with precast. One was kind of, they both had additional costs associated with them. One, we weren't sure how much more this was going to be. The discussion was going with aluminum that basically lasts forever. It wouldn't be in our lifetimes looking at this again. And the direction was, let's pursue replacement with the aluminum bleachers and see how we can move this thing forward. At that time, we had very budgetary costs for both of these estimates. Sorry to say that the bleacher manufacturers weren't willing to give me more detailed costs yet until they actually got into their design. So they're sticking to the $90 per square foot. We're not sure how much additional demolition will be required, so as of today, I'm staying with that $1.7 million number if we go forward here. What we found out in the last 6 weeks is, again, no surprise, availability of materials, trying to get this done this coming summer. We're going to be really hard pressed that all the bleacher companies are telling us there's about a 6-month lead time once approved drawings are submitted. So bleachers are typically designed as a design build, it's a collaborative approach. So what we determined the best way to hopefully get this done in the summer is let's issue an RFP as soon as possible to get a bleacher company on board. They can provide budgetary information then. They can tell us what's the best way to go about this, because we've talked to 3 of them, and 2 of them have gone 2 very different approaches of how to do it. One thinks they can do it on top of the existing, the other doesn't really want to mess around with the existing. So we got to get them on board. So we, on behalf of Mr. Graham and Bradford City Schools, we issued a selective RFP today to 3 bleacher contractors who are known all over the region, and all 3 of them do work throughout Virginia, and they're all licensed to do it. But they also operate under these cooperative contracts throughout the country, some in the state, some are it's similar to state Bass Cup contracts, that kind of thing. So not unlike how we procured the mobile classrooms for Bell Heath, this is the same approach. So we can get them on board, let them begin their design so they can get this material ordered by February. And then, 6 months out, hopefully have it there. What they can't do, and we'll continue to do it while they're doing their work, is the structural bearing points. We got to do some geotechnical investigation, some other site survey work. We need to give them the structural loads. But, that, as far as material concern, is 10% of the order of the project, but the rest we got to get them on board to get this ordered. So that's our goal. I think that's the quickest way to get things under here, and if we have any hope of getting this done during the summer. Back up one slide, please. I gotta say this, okay? Even though they're telling us 6 months, and the installation could be 6 weeks to 2 months total, I've had other projects that we're still waiting on, electric panels and things like that, and there's just no assurance right now. But we're doing everything we physically can right now to try to get this undertaken. I do think some alternate plan or venue or scheduling, if it's available, to get us into October at least, and hopefully that will help us out.
That's for your stadium. I have talked to Montgomery County and superintendent and the Pulaski County superintendent, and they said they would work with us. I don't want to do that, but we're kind of at a situation where we're at the will of the contractors and the metal, but it's nice to know that they would allow us to work with them.
I think once we get them on board and they're able to place that order in February, we'll have a much better idea whether or not that's something that needs to be done or not. So that's where that stands. Again, it's been a tough project to figure out how to slice this and get all the pieces to come together, working backwards from that completion in August. And I can't think of another approach that would give us the best shot to do that. Any questions? I think that's my last slide. Well, this is what was in the proposal that we asked them to submit. This is due at the end of January 26th. I think it's pretty comprehensive. It's a very customized RFP. It's abbreviated yet directed to the point, and we've left selection of the contractor costs, but schedule and their approach and what they're going to reuse and not use and all that. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there for the schools to go with the best route. That's the schedule that's in that RFP, so we'll see what happens.
Jack, I'm curious, and I appreciate the work that you have put into this with your group, and not to open another can of worms just based on feedback that I've already heard and the information you presented tonight. Would the timeline be very similar or the same if we were to reconsider going back to concrete prefab structure versus the aluminum? I'm just curious if that was something that was even explored.
Yes, it was. And
Okay.
it's the same thing because
Okay.
we're looking at precast, and the backlog in the precast is, I can't say it's the same, but there is a pretty extensive backlog. So
Okay.
one of the things that we're hoping to do, and you'll see it in the, or it was shown in the two costs, was that if we can either build on top of or just cut through portions of the existing, we won't, it's an appreciable cost if they have to be taken out completely.
Sure.
The disposal alone would be significant. So if we replace it, we know we have to take those out, right? If we go with the aluminum bleachers, I think we can keep the cost down, even if there's areas where we have to cut out to allow new columns and footings to be installed. We cut the precast, take the piece out that's in the way and drop the other part down in there. And then the new bleachers will have a floor, so you won't see, things won't drop through it, you won't see any of that underneath. So I still think the aluminum bleacher route will hopefully be the best cost, but also from a timing standpoint, the best route too.
Sure. And Rob, maybe a question for you along the similar line with the schedule in mind. Is there any possibility to maybe reach out to Radford University, see any?
We've done that too.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
thank you.
So I know the president there seemed very eager in the meetings I've had with him briefly to continue and extend the relationship between the schools. So I think
So we reached out to them for spring season, but now knowing that we won't start until, we don't really have to worry about that, but I'm sure they would be very flexible for, that too. So we have a really good relationship with them, so we will definitely do that.
It's the old adage, a friend in need, and at
Yeah.
this point in time, we are in need.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
If for some reason, it's the scheduled mobilization was May 30th, right after graduation. If some way materials are available, maybe we relocate graduation to get them in sooner, if it's possible. And that might be something else to keep in the back.
Talk to RU about.
We've already talked to them about the graduation.
Oh, okay.
Or Dr.
So-
Grant has.
All of these projects are taking place in the summer, right? Are the locker rooms, the gym?
Yeah, locker rooms, gymnasium.
Science rooms.
labs. Yes, that is the plan.
So basically, our schools are shut down over the summer for the
high school, middle school.
Yeah.
The high school, yes.
Yeah, middle school still is okay.
I guess you still could have access to the cafeteria if needed.
If you can get to it.
Yeah, that's what I said, you probably have to come in through the outside.
That's what I was going to think. We have football practice, we have band camp, we have everything with the arts program going on throughout the summer as well, because it doesn't end. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do too.
Certainly be available through the outside access to the kitchen and cafeteria.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your
Thank
work.
you, Jay.
Ms. Swing, do you have any questions? Probably not.
That was very thorough. Thank you.
I think her screen's locked. I think it's probably on her end.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for that.
On that sheet I passed out to you, well, you asked me to give you a little bit of report on behaviors. The first document there is first quarter behaviors versus second quarter behaviors and the behavior codes that go along with them, so you can review those. I'm not going to read, there's tons of them. But you can see we've have a significant improvement from the first quarter to the second quarter, and would like to thank our administrators and the staff and teachers for that too. I know it's been difficult and challenging, but behaviors that impede academic progress, they dropped 2. Behaviors that endanger self and others dropped 18. Behaviors of safety concern dropped significantly. Behaviors related to school operations, they went up 2. Luckily, we've had no persistently dangerous. Persistently dangerous is weapons or guns or things of that nature. And then you can see relationships and behaviors dropped more than half. So we're very, very excited about that. And then in the last page that shows just a little different graph there is your these are your behavioral intervention codes too. Behavioral intervention code has dropped from 461 in the first quarter to 208, and then the disciplinary sanction code 229 to 162, and then the instructional support code had 1 each quarter. So we're moving in the right direction. I'd like to thank our staff again for all the work that they've done with that.
What is relationship behavior?
That would be, it's on your code. So if as you go down, the first one is BSO, behaviors related to school operation. You go through there and you can see what is listed. There's several of them that are accounted for that. Bullying, cyberbullying, posting, distributing, displaying, or sharing inappropriate materials, stealing money, speaking to another uncivilly, teasing, taunting.
Slurs.
Yeah.
And vulgar language.
Rob, I'm curious with this, and I appreciate the information. Have you been able to identify what seems to be a causing factor of the increase that led to the request for assistance?
And we are not alone. This was one of the main topics at the conference I was at this weekend, which was the Virginia Association of School Superintendents and the financial directors that go down there. The biggest topic that we are dealing with is mental health. In fact, so big that I'm now going to head I'm the chair of the Professional Learning Committee for VAS, and I'm in charge of creating a mental health component to our spring conference. It's gotten so difficult, but the message from almost everybody down there, including the state superintendent, is mental health issues are so high right now that we're just having to deal with the behaviors, and we don't have we have good resources, but we just don't have as many resources as we need to really help. We're lucky here in Radford. I don't know if you read about this, but in Region 7, Deep Region 7, Southwest Virginia, they have family preservation services. They just stopped all of those services for all those school divisions down there, so they no longer have those services. Luckily, we have Newport Valley Community Services with us, so we feel good about that and feel good about the things that we're doing with our effective school-wide discipline programs too. And I think that's what you're saying. And I think routine with our children is helping a lot too, structure and routine.
Okay.
So I was pleased when looking at this when Paige got me this data. And then the last thing is, and again, I feel really good about this too after this weekend, a lot of our school divisions in the Commonwealth are dealing with chronic absenteeism. Luckily, we're not. Luckily, we're improving on this, and I know our staff works very, very hard. In fact, we have a slew of truancy meetings coming up, But you can see at the end of the document here in your board packet that we're still above 90% attendance rating for all of our schools. So very, very proud with that.
Actually, that was posted on the website. Yeah,
Oh,
posted.
okay, I'm sorry, posted on the website. And then you can see that our free and reduced lunch numbers they're not going to change much because we're CEP eligible in McCarg, Bell Heath, and John Dalton. So really the only change we would have is at the high school. And we do have, pleased to report too, that Connie and I are working on, we have that grant from the Virginia Department of Health. It's called a SOARS grant. And it has about $40,000 that we're using to pay off some of our charges that our high school students have. So they're not eligible CEP, but we're trying to take care of them in that manner.
Excellent.
And that's all my reports.
All righty. Reports of board members. Do you have anything to report, Dr. Ray, from?
No, the last virtual school meeting was postponed until this month, Christmas. It was when I was out of the country.
Okay.
I think so. I was on a plane, but so I'll have a report next week.
Okay, sounds good. My report from the governor's school is we're still in the process of figuring out, it's the never-ending process of figuring out where the governor's school is going to be located in the fall. And we have had site visits at Bradford University and New River Community College and Wythe County Community College as possible places for us to be located. So we have invited our board members and superintendents of participating schools to go and visit these sites in the next 2 weeks. And hopefully that will give our board members some insight on where a good placement would be. So we're moving right along. Have to make decisions pretty soon. So hopefully we can get all the information we need to make the best choice for our students. So there's that. And now, did we have Lee and Liz and Lynn, were they on any other representative boards that we need to?
No, I don't think so. The only thing they would have been, but you two were the designees for VSBA, correct?
I was the alternate.
Yeah, that would have been the only thing.
Yeah, you'll vote on those in
Yeah.
July or August.
In July?
Yeah.
July, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anything else?
No, ma'am.
No? All right, so action items. We have the VSBA Code of Conduct for board members that we sign every year.
Yes, every year, and it hasn't changed
Okay.
much at all. And have you all had a chance to look at that? Do you have any questions about it? So if you approve to move forward with that, we just need you to sign it this evening. Ms. Swing, you can sign it when you feel better.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve, sign?
Just approve the code of conduct.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the VSBA Code of Conduct for board members?
I make a motion.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, and then Dr. Ray had us add the, what do we
Grading
call it?
system.
Grading system.
Yes.
Discussion. Can I ask some clarification?
All right.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we change the grading system beginning the first day of the second semester as follows. Remove the 40 to 100 point grading scale component and initiate a 0 to 100 point grading scale component in its place. Beginning the first day of the second semester of the 2022-23 school year. The rest of the grading current system to remain in place for the remainder of the year until the grading committee concludes its work.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, do I have any discussion?
Can I have some clarification? So we need to communicate to our families so that it's really clear. When this grading system came out, there were school assignment expectations that went along with it, grading expectations, grade recovery, and grade flexibility. I'm assuming it's just the scale itself that you're changing, but you want nothing else changed.
Just the scale. That's
scale.
Exactly why I wrote it the way I wrote it.
Secondly, you want me to continue to post articles on the grading site for our teachers and for the general public. I could, after all the articles I've read, there's a lot of other information around grading. And one of the things that Mrs. Boyd mentioned was retesting, giving a child a chance to take a test to earn a better grade, to show mastery of the information. There's a lot of information about subjectivity in grading and the way grades are given, in that they don't always represent mastery of information, but they bring behavior into it, and so it can sometimes create a conflict with what really has been mastered and if it's mastery of information. And so there's a lot of information about best practices under grading. And I could shift my focus a little bit to that, where I just post articles that have to do with what's the best practices with grading, not really a scale, not whether the 0 to 100 is a scale, but just what's the best practices in grading. So I can shift if you'd like and put those in, or I continue to put articles about a 0 to 100 scale or different types of grading systems. So that's what I need guidance on. Are we looking at continuing to look at a grading scale? Is the board pretty set on, we're going to stick with the 0 to 100, so let's now focus on best practices within grading and go that route? I just need to know as we move forward.
So I can give my opinion.
Okay.
All I'm asking, and I'll give it to you right here, of course. All I'm asking is that we change the basement, the bottom, from 40 to 0. We give the autonomy to give a 0 if a kid chooses not to do something, or says, I'll take my 40 today, or whatever of the circumstances. And I have a second motion as well, and I'll make it in a minute. But I want to revisit this once the committee finishes the work at the end of the year.
Okay.
And again, just my opinion, I can't speak for anyone else. I voted no to this twice because I thought the committee should finish its work before we did anything with the scale. I'm disappointed that the committee hasn't met since September, to be quite frank. But here we are.
Right.
So let's at the end of the year, I'm open to revisit.
It was a grading committee at the middle and high. It now involves elementary. So the grading committee itself needs to kind of be revamped. And I'll work with the principals of all the schools to make sure that every school is represented. And even with McCard going to a standards-based, which is different than what was, out there before, that needs to be understood. So.
And the other thing I would recommend is that a board member be on one of those committees. And I think we have a new board member who would be perfect, in my opinion, as a retired teacher, as she's closest to the classroom. Again, my opinion, but that way you're informed or we could be informed as a board. I don't know. It's just a thought. You guys jump in.
And we would love to have you, and I can update you on kind of what was done last summer and how this all came to pass.
I would be willing to do that.
Great.
My own opinion, Dr. Ray, thank you for speaking up and making the motion. I wholeheartedly agree with it. That's why I was seconding that. Ms. Denny, to your point of you would like some additional direction, I appreciate you being direct enough to ask for that. My recommendation on that, personally, would be something I would defer to the committee, more to the board. My understanding of our role is to provide an outline. The direction of it, and I can tell you is from my own experience, the surveys that are provided at this point in time can only be taken once. I see that as an opportunity to grow and learn, because as a person, the only person who took that survey in September, as you presented additional information, and you have, because I do follow it directly, I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to grow, and I've done research on my own as well in an effort to be prepared for today and going forward, because I want the best for Bradford City. However, once I read articles you presented, there were some particular areas that my opinion may have changed. I went to go back to take the survey again, and I couldn't. I can appreciate that from a data standpoint.
Right.
As an analyst myself professionally, I can appreciate that. But it does exclude the opportunity for a person to grow and to change as information is presented. And I think our data is then skewed if we don't permit that. I think it's also very frustrating as a citizen to try and find that survey. So if it's possible.
And we've published it twice. It's
Sure.
just, yeah, and we're getting ready to do a whole new web page that hopefully will bring some clarity
Absolutely
to
fantastic.
our viewers. We're hoping that it's a little more simpler.
Keeping where we're at here, again, my recommendation just as an individual on the board would be to possibly reach out to the committee, especially as it's being reformed, and look for any guidance from there. If they can't provide any, maybe come back to us and let us know, and we can try and
Well, I
assist
think with
that.
having Ms. Boyd on if she wants to be on the committee,
absolutely.
then she can report as well,
Yeah.
which I think would be great.
Yeah, I think it'd be an easy thing.
Yeah.
But again, thank you for the work you've done. You know,
So to
it's-
be clear, when we communicate to the public, which we need to do, because this is a change, we're going to keep everything else. It's just the 0 to 100 right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, I have it in writing. I'll give it to you.
Great.
And that's the only thing the motion is asking to change, from the 40 to 100 to the 0 to 100.
Okay.
Everything else stays in place until we hear from the committee.
Ms. Swing, do you have any questions or comments?
Again, as has already been expressed, my concern is doing this midstream. Maybe we did it too quickly to begin with, maybe we didn't, but, I mean, it's like we're willy-nilly and bouncing back and forth. I'm trying to sort out, I see both sides, I can see going back to 0. My concern is doing it here in the middle of the year.
Thank you. And that's also
And kind of on the other, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. I was just going to say that's where I am struggling
Right.
too.
Yeah.
That I don't think it's a bad idea to go back to a 0 to 100. I think, to hold our students to a standard, and you need to do the work. And we have staff who would obviously always have worked with our students who need more support for whatever reason, either choosing not to do the work or unable to do the work for whatever reason. We always have had staff who are, working with those students. I just struggle with it in the middle of the school year. But I don't know how that would, I think none of us can predict how that, would that improve grades second half? Because the students know, oh snap, I better get this done. Or is that gonna say, well, now I've got a couple zeros and there's no way for me to make this up, so I just throw my hands up in the air. So I know that's why we changed it in the first place, was to help the students who are in a hole be able to dig themselves out. But if changing it back to, all right, we're moving past COVID, it's time to get back to real world, you got to get your stuff done. Is that what's going to be a motivating factor to get it done? That's where I'm currently struggling.
And could it be that the longer they have that 40 to 100 scale, the harder it might be to go back to a 0 to 100? I'm concerned.
Well, I think if the study demonstrates it's making no difference and it isn't working, then that's part of the consideration of going back. But I listen when the university wants to change credentials or requirements for a degree, and they do it to a student halfway through the semester. That's unfair, because you've given the students these parameters to work under for the school year, and then in midstream you think, oh, no, that doesn't matter anymore, we're going to go back. And I'm not saying I don't want to go back. I just know the frustration when people change the rules on me in the middle of the game.
Well, I think it would be incumbent on the teachers and administrators to meet with the students and explain, these are the expectations. These will be the expectations going forth. We tried it this way, but we're going to now go back to the 0 to 100. And, so that means that if you choose not to do the work, you get a 0. And if you have a personal problem, a crisis, then you speak to your teacher about it.
I think, and just my last comment, and I'll leave it alone, I promise, but I think everyone's heartburn on this was the concern, not so much removing the 40, it's the timing of it. I think Dr. Ray did an exceptional job of offering the opportunity there to wait for the next semester to start instead of doing that interim. To everyone else's point of, well, I don't want to change this in mid-year, that's already been done. It was adopted in August, it was changed in September. In my mindset, and I'm just a simple banker, but what we're doing is we're correcting something. We're not making a major alteration. You know, if you're driving down the road and you start to skid, you don't wait until you hit the curb to move the wheel.
Okay, I need it.
You make that change.
It was a 40 to 100 before students came because I copied all the letters.
And I've got copies of the minutes and the meetings
Yeah.
if you want them.
Well,
you know, it's the point being.
It was August. Thank you.
It was.
It was August. It was September when we went over it, I guess, again, saying we would not change it. I do know that the letters went out in August. Is that correct, admin? Help.
About from 50 to 40.
Yes. 40 to 100.
August the 9th was when the meeting came up that it was adopted on a 50-point scale. September the 13th is whenever it was changed to a 40-point scale. I have copies if you'd like.
Well, part of that too, Chris, is we had to wait for the meeting.
I understand.
In order to have that, the decision was made before the children.
And I don't want to belabor the point because there's other things we need to deal with. But again, in my opinion, being what it is, I think we are taking an opportunity here to correct something that the respondents that have been in there have told us they want done. Dr. Hurt told us this evening he supported the same ideology of removing a 40.
But not this year.
And I appreciate his opinion on that, but I also have my own.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate that
You know,
too, and I have my own.
and that's and but that's where we're at.
I mean, normally a recommendation for an action item comes from the superintendent, and I'd just like the meeting minutes to reflect that I didn't recommend this. I mean, I understand what you're doing, but it didn't come from the superintendent. So, you know, I'm a little concerned because it's this time of year, and I really think it could have an impact on our students. Because they have been playing by a different, you know, it's almost similar to like the middle of basketball season, moving the three-point line back and saying, now you got to shoot from here in order to get 3 points. You know, our children it's going to be confusing to them.
They do their work,
I'm really
it
worried
won't.
about our graduates too.
I mean, you're talking about the failure points. There's a difference of 4 students between 2019 and 2022. Rob, I have absolute confidence and faith in our teachers to do the right thing. I think they always have. I went to school at Radford City Schools. They do a phenomenal job. I love and support them 100%. I've heard from them. And a little over 2,000 of them told us this is what they wanted in November. And I made...
They wanted the grading scale changed?
Yes.
2,000, where was that?
Votes.
Voters. He's talking about voters.
I don't understand that.
We can...
So 2,000
I was elected into office by the premise that on the first day I was going to come in here, we were going to discuss grading scale, and we were going to rectify the problem that the previous board allowed to happen.
Okay, well, nobody ever...
So that's where we are.
Nobody ever came and told me that.
Okay.
Which would have been nice.
That's a different conversation. Okay. At this point, unless there's any other discussion, I think there's a motion on the table that's been seconded.
Yeah, I'll just add one other thing, and I knew it would be a contentious motion, so that wasn't my intent, but that's it. In your articles, and I read them all, obviously. I'm familiar with the site, I looked through it, and when you go to the grading system, it says that this scale was not recommended by the committee. That was my issue with it the whole time.
I think we were trying very hard to be transparent.
I understand. I understand, but that's the reason for my first 2 votes no. I wanted to see this done before anything was changed like that. I have no issues myself when reading through. I mean, of course, I agree with some things. I disagree with other things.
Sure.
Everybody's going to be
Sure.
like that. But the grading system in place, I think, is strong. I think it was well thought out. I think it was done by a committee of teachers. The work was put in. I appreciate the guidance, the leadership, everything that they did. And oh, by the way, we're going to change it to a 40, even though you don't recommend or not recommend. So they may have ended up there anyway.
And that was a recommendation by the committee, just so you know that. The changing it from a 50 to a 40
That was a
recommendation.
negotiation by the committee.
It was. Clark Ramsey, I got to give credit to Clark Ramsey.
The
He
40
really
conundrum or the 50
yeah.
conundrum, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I remember.
Yep.
And that was a negotiation, not a recommendation. It was either 50 or what else can you come up with? It's not going to be 0. Look, this is all rumor to me. That part is.
I'm sorry, what?
Did
Did you say this is all rumor to me?
Rumor, the negotiating
Oh,
of
okay.
50 to 40 is what I'm referring to. So the reason the motion was on the table for me in the first place was that the committee never came up with this scale of changing it from 0 to 100. I would like to see the full body of work, and let us hear about it, I guess June or July, whenever that may be. I think that's whenever the committee
Okay.
concludes.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Swing, do you have any other comments?
No?
Okay. All right, so I guess we shall vote. Are we going to vote as a whole, or should we roll call? How would you prefer, Ms. Long?
Probably roll call on this one.
I would.
Okay. How about, let's have a roll call, please.
Ms. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Calfee,
Yes.
Dr. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Swing,
No.
and Ms. Wright.
Struggle. I'm struggling, y'all. Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a second motion regarding this same discussion. I make a motion for the grading system to be revisited as a whole once the grading committee finishes its work by the end of the 2022-23 school year. I don't even know that needs to be a motion, as long as we say in an official manner that we will revisit it as a whole.
Does that need to be a motion, or did we just agree to?
I think that's up to you all.
Okay, I make that motion.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do I have any discussion? Is that what we would propose, that Ms. Boyd would sit on the committee and that as
No, I
well?
think that, for me, that was just a recommendation. I think we're doing that.
Okay.
And it sounds like it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just to comment along those lines, I want to be clear. My issue with this whole thing was noted previously, was there were changes made before the research was complete. I am all for new ideas. I am all for new opportunities for the betterment of the schools, the students, and the community. But it has to be complete. It has to be thought out. We need the input, the full input and feedback. You know, before we make those changes, it should have been done, and we should have had the recommendation. The previous board should have had the recommendation from the committee with complete research. And I think if that would have been done, I wouldn't have had any heartburn over it. So I appreciate the additional motion. I think it's warranted, and I think it's essential.
And of course, being a teacher, I feel that the input of the teachers is imperative. They have to implement. They're inside in the classroom, and they're seeing the effects of what is of policy being made. And so that I really respect and want their input.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Swing?
I thought I said aye, excuse me.
Okay, motion passes. All right, no other action items. We need to have a closed meeting this evening? Dr. Ray?
Yes, I make a motion that we go into a closed meeting tonight under Virginia Statute 2.2-3711. Closed meetings authorized for certain limited purposes. A, public bodies may hold closed meetings only for the following purposes. 1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 That's it.
Okay. We are in closed session. All right, I need a motion to convene in regular session.
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Back in regular session. I need a certification for the closed meeting, please.
I make a motion that we certify the closed meeting for reason number 1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I need a motion for personnel matters. Report 1.0.
I make a motion that we approve Personnel Report 1.0.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And we didn't have any student or tuition. Anything else? Nope. All right, so the date for our next regular board meeting is Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Save me some money.
Womp womp. And we are
Yeah, I shouldn't have
adjourned.
said
Thank
that.
you all.
I shouldn't have made that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I have this paper here for us to all sign for the code of conduct. Do we just sign it, or do we have to, and print our name on the second